Glad to have my namesake in the studio, Ini Abimbola.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's good to be talking to another Ini.
I know. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Good to have you. So Ini is, she is the Vice President of Sustainability Practitioners Association of Nigeria. She's also the founder of TESOL Praxis. A former CEO, handed over to a successor, and now stays as the founder. Good to have you in the studio. So we saw those numbers, what Nigeria is losing from the World Bank. I mean, I know you have a generator in your house somewhere, and then you're either doing diesel and solar.
Diesel as well.
Imagine, you know, and I think the governor of Lagos said it that if we could pool all the resources of what people are spending on these alternatives, we could actually power up Nigeria.
Absolutely.
But there's no coordinating factor and all of that. But we have sustainability practitioners here. I think you are going to bring that to the table.
I think the conversation has been on for quite a while. And then, of course, the question still remains, with this target that we have, are we ever going to be able to achieve it? Achievability is really based on a number of things.
That's the net zero carbon emissions target of 20.
So Nigeria's target of 2060, for instance, very bold, aligns with global commitments, but the pace is very slow. We're still heavily reliant on fossil fuel, as it were, very weak infrastructure. The grid is dying and waking up every single day. And then, of course, there's very limited financing in that particular area. So yes, the clear policies, the energy transition plan that we have is very good. But of course, then we need to enhance renewable energy, as it were. One of the key things that I always say is that affordability is very key. If we really want to be able to meet that pace, it has to be a sprint. It definitely doesn't have to be at the pace that we're going right now. So achievability is possible, but definitely not at the pace that we are going.
So you talked about affordability and availability and the policy being beautiful. But you know, it seems a lot of Nigerians, we talked on average Nigeria, they've lost a lot of trust in policies because we've heard so many policies in the country, but when it comes to workability, you understand, it comes to another thing. But you also talked about the affordability. And a lot of people say, the problem is not money, the problem is have the idea. And the private sector will bring in the money. So what's stopping the private sector going?
I'm not sure that it works that way. So there has to be some level of stronger political will and direction. So the government has to give the direction. So financing is not a problem if the plan is very clear. So yes, you have an idea. An idea is good. An idea is 10 a dozen, if you will. But the idea that is able to translate to what I would call tangible impact, if you will. So Africa wants to be able to meet just energy, you know what I mean. However, being able to finance that, the affordability comes from the fact that there's financing for it. And financing will come from a mix. It cannot be from one source. So if we're saying government has to do a lot of things, but government won't be able to do it alone. So yes, government can bring the money, government revenue, there can be green bonds, there can also be us leveraging on Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund, if you will. But then there also has to be the play of private sector. So private sector, whether domestic or foreign, private capital, if you will. And then, of course, the ability to also jump into all the available global funds, bilateral donor support, and all of that. Then you bring in all of this money. It's now possible for renewable energy to be affordable. Target is nothing if we're not also moving at the speed that we need to move. And one of the things that we need to understand is that energy poverty is Africa's silent crisis. It is really eating deep. And what we are doing right now, even with all the diesel, biomass, all of the things we're using, renewable energy, there are still people in the rural and underserved communities that struggle to have light. So we are now making them choose between darkness and dirty fuels. So something has to give, and the sooner the better for us.
Yeah, and reports show that we need about $27.7 billion annually. Annually. I wonder where we'll get that from.
So again, that's the point that I made around it being a mix. So government revenue, private sector as well, international donor funds. The world can ask Africa to be go away from fossil fuel without also being able to put the money on the table. So it has to be a mix. The money has to come from different places.
So do you think that, for instance, in Nigeria, the new Electricity Act that's supposed to bring in, empower states more and allow states to work closely with the private sector, do you think that could be perhaps a solution?
I think that if we are able to really use it as the plan directs, I think it could be a game changer, if you ask me. So states, for instance, are also able to pull resources from private sector, from international donor funds, and be able to, I think if we just have one what best practice, if you know what I mean. So a state really driving this and getting that funding that it needs from different means. So government will bring its own international bilateral donor support, private sector, public-private partnerships, the green bonds that we have. And one state is able to show that this is possible and this is doable. I think it will also ginger a lot of other states to be able to come up with
What would that look like? Would it look like the governor of a state coming out to say, maybe announce incentives? What would it really look like?
I think for getting the private sector, it has to be. So whether it's domestic or international funding from the private sector, for instance, it has to come with some level of incentives and, of course, some de-risking mechanisms as well, so they are comfortable to be able to put their money in and are sure that, they'll also be able to get a return on investments. Return on investments, return on assets, whatever it may be. Nobody wants to put in money and not be able to. A lot of private sector organizations or even international donor agencies are happy to put in, but the plan has to be very clear. And understanding also that Nigeria also has some level of reputation that we also need to manage. So again, that's important, that the plan has to be very clear. Investors need to be able to see that this plan works. And then, of course, there are lots of regulatory bottlenecks as well that might also make this a bit difficult. So it's not just enough for the governor to come up and say, look, we're inviting. There are quite a number of other things that need to be at play.
I hear the bottleneck part because there are so many things and policies that we sit down here and speak all the English. And then when it's time, and people want to, for instance, the AFCFTA, I've spoken to someone who wanted to participate and says getting a license is a headache. And yet, we say we want to drive intra-African trade. So I think the time for openness and sincerity and shining the light on every step of implementation is now. If we really want to get these things done, it's not just about the policy, the beautiful ones.
And so the policies are there. The policies are beautiful from A to Z. They're well done, but implementation is really where the problem begins to so whether we want to achieve it or not is not a question. We want to. We need it. Nigeria, for instance,
we say we want to. Do we really want to?
Well, I think that the need is great and we want to, but do we have enough political will to drive it to a logical conclusion and be able to show that as a best practice in Africa? Nigeria has all what it takes, but what will we do differently? And I think that's where the question is. What will we do differently? Or what should we do differently to be able to see this thing become a reality, even if on a test basis? You know what I mean? Let's test it and say, oh, it works. So what do we need to maybe expand the scope? You know what I mean? So that's why I said, take one state that has the political will, that has the maybe, what would I say, best practice antecedents.
I vote for Lagos.
Well, I vote for Lagos. I was born, bred, buttered in Lagos, so I will start with Lagos. And because Lagos has always been,
on Governor,
you know what I mean. Lagos has always been a trailblazer. So let's see, can we start? Can we use Lagos State, for instance, as a test case to say this is achievable? If Lagos State can do it, with the kind of large communities that we have in Lagos, then it is possible for others.
Okay, so let us Nigerians send you as the Vice President of Sustainability Practitioners Association of Nigeria. We are sending you to Lagos State. Please, can you help us tell Lagos that we believe in Governor Sanwo-Olu, and we want him to be once again a trailblazer and show us how this thing can be done. I know that Lagos was one of those first states to domesticate, at least work on domesticating. And when you talk about PPP in power, even when former Governor Fashola was here, we have some very stations. Even Alausa, I think it's being run by PPP and all. So please, can you help us tell Governor Sanwo-Olu?
I'm sure the relevant authorities and the governor himself is listening. I strongly believe that it's something that the state can do, particularly in serving as a best practice case. They've gone around. I see the governor traveling a lot, looking at best practice, what's happening in other countries. And I think that with what they've been able also to do in transportation, for instance, with the rail.
And they're also working on produce. For Lagos.
So I think that the opportunity for Lagos to be able to take this on very strongly, it's there, and we're here to support. Actually, Sustainability Professionals Institute of Nigeria, we're here to give the support. We've worked with some agencies of government to also be able to help them to define certain roadmaps. But here we're here to support them, and we actually trust that Lagos can be the flag bearer.
Your next meeting, please. You need to. But even while we are hopeful and laughing here, in the rural area is actually a different picture. It's much worse. People are going. When we talk about real energy poverty. It's really, really bad there. People still have to use firewood and things like that. And it does seem like getting down to them is going to take much, much longer. So again, and talking about sustainability, this is causing a lot of harm to our environment, our climate, health. All of this is feeding into that.
So I was very excited. I think it was 2 years ago when we talked about the year of gas and the whole idea.
Decade of gas.
Decade of gas. And the whole idea was really to begin to break this down, even to the rural and underserved communities, to understand that we could go away from using fossil fuel, all of these dirty fuels like firewood and all of that. But I don't think that we're able to trickle down to the grassroots as much as possible. And so what we're doing is that we're making people choose between darkness, as I said earlier, and dirty fuels because of affordability. So when we say that we want energy poverty to end, it has to get to the poorest households, or else we have not achieved. And I think that that's what is also very important. As much as we want to do this, are we also thinking about the bottom of the pyramid? Will they be able to afford this? And what will that mean if they are able to afford it? So yes, we're talking about, CNG, we're talking about gas. LPG. Gas, we have abundant gas reserves. And for me, that could actually be a bridge to renewables, while at the same time, we're also removing some level of dependency on diesel, as it were. But right now we're having to depend on the whole works to be able to survive. So what would it take for us to see that change? We've seen a lot of people get on solar. We've seen a lot of people get off the national grid because of cost. But it is also still very expensive. So for me, affordability is what will drive this energy poverty to a point where we're not talking about it anymore.
And some people talk about costs of transitioning. I mean, the last manufacturer I talked about this. It's a major consideration.
So if I already have my machines running on diesel and
why should I go this?
And then you're asking me to spend maybe twice that amount to be able to move to renewable. I'm going to think about my profit. I'm going to think about my operational costs. I'm going to think about how will the business survive if we have to spend that much money. So what will happen to these other
structure that you already have?
That we already have. So I think that it really needs to be thought through. For most organizations, they're happy to transit, but it has to be a gradual transition. And then that's where, again, affordability comes to play.
Affordability at the beginning and at the end, even at the middle.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Namesake Inia Bimbola, founder and former CEO of TISO Praxis and Vice President of Sustainability Practitioners Association of Nigeria. Really good speaking to you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.